I think I chose this topic because there's a lot of judgment that goes on between religion and spirituality. And since we don't judge here, right? I thought we could talk about it. So, when you were a kid, were you one of those kids that asked that really annoying question, what came first? The chicken or the egg? Did you ever get an answer? Because I didn't. It was one of those think for yourself kind of things, wasn't it? Well, if our answer was based on the creation story in the Bible, we would say the chicken was first. However, if we were in the business of raising chickens, we would probably say the egg came first. And both make sense. So let's talk about what came first. Religion or spirituality? Well, it depends on who you ask, doesn't it? In terms of experience with sacred texts, they're going to tell you religion came first. Now that more people, though, are talking and writing about spirituality in terms of origin, or in terms of our understanding, they're saying that spirituality came first. Well, spirit was here before religion. The universe was here before anybody knew it or recognized it or understood it. So I think the answer to the question is none of the above. We're back at the beginning. How's that for a clear-cut, solid answer? Back to the chicken and the egg. What I have found over the years is that a lot of people have discovered that for them personally, religion alone just wasn't enough. They love their religion, they love their tradition, their rituals, and yet they're still seeking to touch that inner something, that yearning that lies within them for a more enhanced life experience. And they find themselves turning to something a little bit deeper. And generally, what I find is that they incorporate a bit of spirituality, things like we do here, into their daily practice, which allows them to go a little bit deeper. Now, spirituality, because it's an offshoot of sorts of religion, there's bound to be some similarity between the two. A loose definition of religion is a patterned set of attitudes, beliefs, and practices that orient a community toward the divine. Now, 3 really important ideas in that statement: attitude, belief, and practices, community, and divine. We need all 3 of those things, whether we consider ourselves spiritual or religious. Now, a common definition of spirituality is the personal, individual way that each of us relate to the divine. Spirituality is the way in which the divine works in and through each one of us. And that creates a very personal, very intimate relationship with God, with life, with our source. I read that it's the way God writes sacred law on our hearts in personal and individual ways. And I thought that was really a beautiful way to put that. So religion is the way a group of individuals practice their personal spirituality, and their goal is building community. Well, our individual spirituality is formed of our beliefs, and we practice together as well, building community. So they're really very similar at the core. All religions share the same basic idea, that which I usually share at the beginning of every service: the love, the kindness, the compassion. And they all teach the golden rule in one form or another. So if you follow that golden rule, you can also be spiritual. It's really the same. And Nathan had read in that opening piece, neither spirituality nor religion is inherently good or bad. And that is the truth. It's the same concept with fire, right? We can feed our family, or we can destroy a forest. It's always dependent upon how it's used. And the same thing is true for spirituality and religion. So whether it's good or bad is going to depend solely upon how it's practiced, how it's lived, how it's shared. The original goal with religion was to give people the opportunity to seek their higher power in a divine, sacred way. Isn't that what we do here? Spirituality encourages that same thing, to seek our higher power in that divine, sacred way. They're both paths to God, simply different roads. And so while there are distinctions between them, there's an unnecessary division between those two fields of thought. Here's what I have found. When they're spoken of as being separate, the problem I see is that religion is burdened with a tremendous amount of negativity, whereas spirituality is applauded with everything positive. Doesn't have to be that way. Religion is spiritual, and spirituality can also be considered religious. Now, on the surface, one tends to be more personal and private, and the other tends to be to incorporate more public and organized doctrines. However, there are hundreds of religions, and at their core, in all those various religions, guess what? There's only one God, one spirituality. So in truth, they are tied together. Now, for many of us, our path began in a traditional type of religion. How many of you did? Started, yeah, wow, almost everybody. Well, here's the deal. We have very likely carried a lot of those practices, those rituals that we learned when we were younger from that traditional religion setting. Prayer, meditation, lighting candles, having an altar, burning incense, attending a Sunday service, even though we're not a church, right? We're not a church, we're a center, but attending Sunday service, singing songs that are uplifting, reading sacred texts. Those are just a few of religious rituals that many of us continue to practice in our spiritual life. At Easter and Thanksgiving, here at Common Ground Corona, we even do our own version of communion. It's different than the traditional Christian. We do it and we honor nature, we honor life, and we honor and show our gratitude for all of it. So there is ritual involved with spirituality as well. They do have their differences. And at the same time, they can coexist. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. Through following religions, there have been many great saints who have attained the realizations of a mystical approach to God. There are plenty of Christian mystics or Sufi saints or anything in between, right, that has brought that mystic part of religion or spirituality to us. Each and every religion has produced spiritual seekers of the highest order. And at the same time, most religions are built on a spiritual foundation. I found a recent article from today. That's not from today, but today. And the survey indicated that 77% of those who took the survey saw a difference between religion and spirituality. Now, I'm not surprised because I get that. You know, many of us here will identify as spiritual, not religious. So I understand that people see that huge difference. However, being spiritual and being religious are both part of being in relationship with God, with all that is. Both have a belief in a higher power. Both know and that this power possesses and creates all that we see, all that we are. Both desire to have that intimate relationship with a higher power. They each have rituals and practices that deepen their connection to life. And both certainly have respect for the sacred, the otherworldly, if you will, and not just a respect for God, a respect for the reality beyond our senses, beyond our reason. Discussions about God, acts of prayer, and emphasis on service to others, all of those things are elements of religion. And those are all things that we need and we crave as human beings. Those are all things that we participate in as spiritual beings and in spiritual community. So, we can create unity between these two ideas. When organized religion will take spiritual people seriously, maybe appreciate their open minds, and when those same open-minded spiritual people take seriously what organized religion has to offer, they both have great value. This is about mutual respect. It's about honoring all paths to God. Thich Nhat Hanh said, if we take something to be the truth, we may cling to it so much that even if the truth comes and knocks at our door, we won't want to let it in. Do we get so stuck in our thinking that we don't allow anything more in? Do we get so stuck in our thinking that we have this idea that everyone else is wrong and we're right? Something to ponder, something to really think about. We absolutely can find the sacred through a religious tradition. We can also find it in the beauty of the natural world or in the best of humanity. We find the divine when we explore ways to engage body, mind, and spirit. And that's what we teach here. When you come here, you have a foundation of religion or you don't. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of being here. Either way, you're welcome. Either way, you can keep your thoughts and your beliefs. Nobody's going to try and change that. You can keep your religion. You're welcome and invited to deepen that through maybe some new or different spiritual practices, and to do that in a very safe, non-judgmental space. We come together with people of like mind, of open minds, and explore how we can intensify our relationship with God. The important element here is to strengthen our connection. That's what we want to do. And we do that by moving away from the intellect, by going within, by listening to our higher self. Because here we're much more concerned about growing into and experiencing that divine consciousness. The spiritual approach to God, simply stated, is a path of love, a path of acceptance, of non-judgment. Spirituality reveals to us that God is omniscient, God is omnipresent, and it can be felt as a living presence here and now. It teaches that there's no separation between God and me, and there's no such thing as us and them, that we are truly all one. The Dalai Lama said, in the final analysis, the hope of every person is simply peace of mind. Do you want that peace of mind? That's what we all want. And we do that through experiencing God, our connection. And experiencing God comes through personal interactions. It also comes through community, because we start exploring the idea of we instead of I. Experiencing God can also come through those private, intimate moments, through prayer, through meditation, through sacred texts. Sometimes God enters into relationships with us through other people. How many of us have been touched by another person one way or another? This is why people gather in a spiritual center, or a church, or a synagogue, or a mosque, or a temple, to have that sense of community. Spirituality involves seeking meaning and purpose in our human existence. And often we do that through reflection or through different activities and practices associated with a religious tradition. It includes understanding, who am I? Why am I here? What's the meaning in my life? All of those things that we like to explore. What came first, the chicken or the egg, right? We like to explore those ideas. It's an ongoing process of reconciling your beliefs with what you experience in the world. And that's really huge. In spirituality, we learn to stay centered in the midst of our struggles through the many different cycles of life, recognizing, knowing, remembering God is in charge and all is well. And we learn to recognize the complexity of life with all its joys, with all its wonders, with all its pleasures, even while we also experience those hurts, the fears, and the disappointments. We recognize it's all the same. Without a community of spiritual friends, however, it can be challenging to stay in that place of balance and recognition. We all need to be reminded who we are, all of us. And it's helpful to have others around us of similar values and sets of beliefs. And that way they can hold us in the light when we're unable to do it for ourselves. Those are the relationships that challenge us to deepen our connection to life. True spirituality is something that is found deep within each and every single one of us. It's a way of loving, accepting, and relating to the world and to the people around you. And so whether we call ourselves religious or spiritual or something else entirely, we're all searching for the same thing: peace, happiness, love, acceptance. So whatever path you choose, be it religion or spirituality, if what you want is that peace, that happiness, that love, and that acceptance, your path will indeed offer you the light of God, of your inner self, in this life, in the present, in the here and the now. So thank you for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.